Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Startups have always had myth making and lore attached to them. The reality is that starting something from scratch, willing it into existence, aligning and assembling the resources around it that need to make it happen, and navigating all the challenges that come is so difficult that people need to have wildly aspirational goals to ground themselves, to inspire themselves, to hang on to when times get tough. And over time, the aspiration of what different young entrepreneurs aspire to has changed. At any given moment, there's always one entrepreneur or one category of entrepreneurs, which are what young people coming to Silicon Valley look at as the example that they want to follow. And over the last couple years, there has been an interesting and fairly dramatic shift in that aspirational profile. In short, more than ever before, founders are looking at how much they can do all on their own. Now, in some cases, this is pure solopreneurship. Peter Levels has become iconic as an aspiration point for many who think that the rat race of venture capital and traditional Silicon Valley mores isn't for them. We're in an era where there are more indie hackers and solo founders. People building things that might pejoratively been called lifestyle businesses before are now not only seeing a lot of success, but being lauded for that success and held up as examples of an opportunity. However, even when it comes to traditional startup structures, there is definitely a dramatic shift down in terms of team. You might have seen this chart earlier this year from Carta, which showed that there had been a dramatic increase in the percentage of startups that were using Carta that had solo founders and no VC funding. They called this the bootstrap solo founder era. Earlier this month, the AI World's Fair conference in San Francisco had an entire track dedicated to building and working with tiny teams. It was one of the trends that I argued that Swix and his crew were out in front of. Entrepreneur Henry Shih has put together a leaderboard for lean AI native companies, which is something we'll be coming back to in a little bit. And everywhere you turn, there are teams that are celebrating hitting millions of dollars in ARR with only a few people. But to crib the famous idea of dream no small dreams, for they have no power to stir men's souls, getting to some small number of millions of dollars in ARR with just a few people is not the big iconic goal. No, the big iconic goal is now the solopreneur unicorn, the one-person, $1 billion company. This is from an interview with Sam Altman last year. Now, when will it happen? In May at the Code with Claude conference, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei was asked that question, when the first company would hit $1 billion valuation with a single human employee. With absolute confidence, he responded 2026. So obviously, AI is at the core of this new opportunity. But there is one trend in particular that I think is a key part of this almost more than any other. And that is, of course, the rise of vibe coding. Lovable CEO Antoine Osica, in September of 2024, after quote tweeting Nick Dobos saying, "Building an entire full stack app should be as easy as making a new note on your phone," Antoine responded, "That's why I started Lovable. Once possible, it will unlock as much creativity as YouTube, TikTok, Twitch have combined, and create a generation of one-person unicorn founders." Now, vibe coding is impacting this trend in a couple of ways. The first of all is that the vibe coding platforms themselves are just absolutely crushing it. Earlier this week, Replit shared its growth in annual recurring revenue. It took them from 2016 to mid-2024 to go from 0 to 10 million ARR. It then took them from mid-2024 to now to go from 10 million ARR to 100 million ARR. And even though this feels correct based on all the behavior that we've seen, it still is leaving everyone's jaw on the floor. Jason from SaaStr writes, "No one is going to code without AI again." Lovable, meanwhile, who we just mentioned, recently shared that they were up to 75 million ARR, only 9 months or something since they were founded. Still, it's not just that coding platforms are very successful, it's what they enable, which is really the unlock when it comes to the opportunity to see one-person unicorns. Recently, Anthropic's chief product officer and Instagram co-founder Mike Krieger said, "When I think back to Instagram's early days, our famously small team had to make painful decisions. Either explore adding video or focus on our core creativity. With AI agents, startups can now run experiments in parallel and build products faster than ever." Now, of course, it's beyond a small team being able to do more. You also have, thanks to vibe coding and just coding agents in general, people who can build entire production-ready MVPs in a single weekend. The speed at which a motivated solopreneur can iterate and test is like nothing we've ever seen. The speed of distribution that comes from social media is finally combined thanks to AI and vibe coding with the speed of building. In other words, software development is no longer the blocker. In fact, the entire structure of what's difficult about a startup has shifted. Kanjun Shui, the CEO of AI research lab Imbue, said at a panel in January, "I think the places where it'll be easiest and first are bottoms up, either consumer or prosumer products that don't require large go-to-market teams. I think go-to-market is actually one of the places where it's going to be difficult to automate all these relationships with other people. That human-to-human trust, I think, is still very necessary and very important." This was in the context of what the first one-person, $1 billion company would look like. So what that means is that it's likely that solo unicorns will need to be self-serve, products that people can discover through viral media and manage and come to on their own. And as people have started to look to try to understand what the first solopreneur unicorns are going to look like, at the end of last week, we had a dramatic moment that I think will be seen as a key inflection point on this trajectory. Base 44 was acquired by Wix last week for $80 million. The company began as a solo project spun up over the last 6 months by founder Mao Shlomo. He made a vibe coding tool that builds in integrations like databases, authentication, and storage to allow programmers to focus on what they're building. The product managed to hit 250,000 users before acquisition, and Shlomo boasted of $189,000 in profit for May after covering token costs for the models that were being served. When the product launched, Shlomo said, "Base 44 is a moonshot experiment, helping everyone, technical or not, build software without coding at all." Now, although he started solo, the team did expand to 8 employees by the time they were acquired, but it showed just how far and how fast a bare-bones team can go. In his discussion about the acquisition, Shlomo also explained where the limits are when trying to build small. He wrote, "After a few sleepless nights and long chats with Avishai Abrami, the CEO of Wix, I realized this is the best decision I can make for Base 44 and its community. I believe we have a real shot at building something transformative, a product that moves the needle for a lot of people. Partnering with Wix probably triples our chances of getting there. If we got this far bootstrapped and organic, I'm excited to see what we can do with real resources." And part of what this brings up, and is important, is that although the one-person, $1 billion dream is a great anchor during the slog and toil, the real idea is more about how to design the teams of the future that incorporate humans and agents. Writing in Forbes in March, Thiel fellow Kaushik Tiwari laid out a roadmap. He wrote, "The one-person unicorn model doesn't eliminate teams, it reimagines them. Tomorrow's founders might manage a hybrid workforce of AI agents, freelancers, and core employees. For aspiring entrepreneurs, the message is clear. The barriers to building a unicorn are collapsing. With strategic AI adoption, a single visionary can now wield with the operational capacity of a mid-sized company. The question isn't whether one-person unicorns will emerge, it's how they'll reshape industries, economies, and our very definition of entrepreneurship. The revolution isn't coming, it's already here." There are now hundreds of solo founders and tiny teams taking up this challenge. I mentioned before that Super.com founder Henry Shih had been tracking this trend closely on a website called the Lean AI Leaderboard. It focuses on around 50 startups with under 50 headcount and annual revenues above $5 million. It organizes them by revenue per employee. At the top of the list are household names like Telegram, which has $1 billion in revenue for their 30 employees, Midjourney with $500 million in revenue for a 40-person team, and Anysphere, the creator of Cursor, with 20 employees generating $100 million in revenue. But the list also includes a bunch of teams hitting major milestones with less than 10 people. Solvely AI with $6 million for their 4-person team, Cal AI with a 4-person team generating $12 million in revenue, and OpenArt with $12 million coming in for the 8-person company. Now again, none of these companies fit the exact description of a one-person unicorn, but they still clearly show the trend. She also lists when these companies were founded, and it's very obvious that startups are increasingly capable of doing more with less. A few days ago, she highlighted GenSpark as the, quote, fastest growing lean AI company we've ever seen. The 24-person consumer AI agent company hit $36 million in ARR in 45 days. She wrote, "In the age of AI, speed is the only defensibility, and being lean and nimble is your unfair advantage. See you at 100 million ARR soon." You can basically look every couple of days at Henry's profile on LinkedIn, which, by the way, he's a great follow, and see some new story like this that just shows how fast things are moving. Now, on top of just the actual numbers, the Lean AI Index also makes it clear that startup culture is changing. Vanity hires, a giant office, perks, out. Those things have given way to tiny teams vibe coding together and accomplishing things that were unimaginable before. TAM is out, real revenue is in. Bootstrapping your way to hundreds of thousands of paying customers is the new 9-figure Series A. As she put it, turns out being lean is the new flex. This is the future of company building. AI native, efficient, fast growth, founder-led, and profitable. We're just getting started. So are we on track to see the first solo unicorn by the end of next year? I honestly think it's a pretty good bet. For now, though, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Thanks for listening or watching, as always, and until next time, peace.